Alright, welcome back everybody. My name is Dustin, and in the last video we were actually able to get the music player playing music in our Asteroids game. So that's nice, alright? But I left you with a challenge to actually finish off filling out the music player functions and to take a crack at doing the SoundFX class and the sound player class. If you're able to get those all working, great job, post that in the comments below. If not, that's okay, we're going to go over that in this video. So the first thing we're going to want to do is finish off the music player. Okay. So the rest of the functions are really just simple wrappers around the SDL Mixer for mixed music. So we already have our play function, so now let's do the pause function. The pause function is pretty straightforward. It's just mix, pause music. That's it. And it doesn't return anything or anything like that. And the same with resume. We can do that. So mix, resume music. And the stop function, we actually want to go mix, halt, music. So it looks like this one always returns 0, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll just leave this like this. And then set volume is the only one that really kind of differs a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to clamp the volume between 0 and 100 and basically have it around like 0 to 100%. When the mix volume can go up to from 0 to 128. So we're going to have to make a little ratio for that. So let's go if volume is less than 0 or volume is greater than 100. Let's have a small error. So Scion error, and just say like volume failed to set volume must be between 0 and 100. And then we input and then we'll just put our input value. And that's the volume. Okay. And then just return. So now we just want to scale the volume from 0 to 100. So we go scale the volume from 0 to 100%. And we'll say int volume changed is equal to static cast int volume divided by 100.f times 128. And then we say mix volume music, and we just send in our volume change. Awesome. And for playing music, we just want to set return mix playing music. That's it. So this one will just return, if the music is currently playing, it returns 1, otherwise it returns 0. Okay, so that's it for that. So those functions are pretty straightforward. I believe we already did the bindings for that. Let's take a look. So here in our sound binder, yeah, we already did all the bindings for that. So if you want, go ahead and try to see if those work. Put those in your main function. Actually, we can do that now. Let's quickly go see if our stop button works. So if we go to our main, where we're playing the music, main.lua, here. So we started our music. So let's go in here and go in our update. Let's say if keyboard dot just pressed, and let's say key C, that'll do. Then music dot stop. Cool, let's see if that works. Okay, so we got our music playing, and if I hit C, and it stopped. Awesome. Now you can do the other functions to see if the pause and the resume work, but it should work accordingly. So now that we have that finished, let's go start the SoundFX class and the sound player. So the first thing we want to do is create the SoundFX class. So let's go. So in our sounds, in our essentials, we want to add a new SoundFX class. Go new, header, SoundFX.h. And we're going to have our sound params. And we're going to want the SDL wrappers as well. So Scion utilities, SDL wrappers. Okay, so the sound effects will basically be the same as the music class. However, it'll be altered slightly for sound effects because we need that sound effects pointer that is the wrapper around a mixed chunk. Okay. Namespace, Scion sounds. Now we'll say class, SoundFX, then private. And we're going to have sound param. That's just going to be m params. Then we're going to have a sound FX pointer. That's our MP sound effects. Okay, now public. We're going to have our constructor, sound FX. Sorry, capitals. That's going to take in const, sound params, reference params. Then it's going to take in a sound effects pointer. So P sound FX. And then our destructor can just be default. Now we're going to have those simple getter functions. So inline, const, std, bring, get name, const, return, and params dot name. Get description, get file name, get duration, and that's good for the strings. So get description, file name, and then this one will be duration. So we got to change this here. Get duration. And if you remember, duration is a double. And this one was get file name. And then get description. And the last one's going to be, we need to get the mixed chunk. So that's the sound effects pointer. So let's go inline, mix, chunk pointer, get sound FX pointer. Now this is getting us the underlying mixed chunk pointer. Then we go if not MP sound effects, return null pointer. Otherwise, return our sound effects get. So that's going to return the underlying pointer. Let's make our constructor here. All right, since it's just the one thing, we don't really care about changing the namespaces around like I normally do. And this one's going to be pretty straightforward. So it's just m params is just param, and then MP sound effects, std move, P sound. Cool. That's it. All right, so now that we're done the sound effects, let's go and start the sound player. Let's call it SoundFX Player. But it's already sound player here, so let's go here, new, header, and we'll say SoundFX Player.h. Okay, so the SoundFX Player will be almost the same as the music player, with one key difference. With the SDL Mixer, it only provides one channel for music. However, there can be multiple channels for sound effects. So whenever we want to play a sound or change the volume of a sound, we have to specify the channel we want to play it on. So if we select -1 as the channel, SDL Mixer will look for any open channel to use when trying to play. And if you use -1 for set volume, it will set all of the channel's volume. It would be the same idea, so name, space, Scion sounds, and then we take class, sound player. Now we're not going to have any private, so we're just going to say public. We could use a struct here, but that's okay. So we'll say SoundFX Player. I think that works better. And this can just be default. And the destructor can also be default. And then we'll have void play. If we go back to our sound bindings, we did an overload here where it took in the number of loops and stuff. We did the overload in the sole constructor, but we can also do the overload in here and just say in our sound player, and then have this one just say take in the sound effects. Say class SoundFX reference SoundFX. Then we can do it again, but this one will take in the number of loops and the channel that we want to play it on. And then we'll have a set volume. Well, you know what? We won't return anything for volume, so just void set volume. You can change that to int if you like. And that'll take in int for the channel and int for the volume that we want to set it to. Okay. Then we'll have void stop for stopping the sound, and then bool is playing. Bool is playing, not player, playing. And this one we want to set in the channel. Is this channel playing? Okay. Now that we have all those, let's make them. And that created it in our SoundFX Player .cpp. Now this has more functions, so I want to separate the namespace. So namespace, Scion sounds. Awesome. Then we want to include sound effects. And we need to go into our essentials. Sound effects. Now, we don't need to do anything in the constructor of the SoundFX Player because we created the music player already, and it already opened up our audio device for us. So we don't need to do that because it's already done. However, you could put in a check to see if it's been opened or not. That's up to you to put it in though, okay? Okay, so let's do the first play function. And the first play function is actually just gonna be a wrapper. This one is just gonna be a wrapper around this one with some default values. So what we'll say is play, and that'll take in our sound effects. And that'll go in 0 for loops, so just one loop. We don't want it to loop anymore. And then -1 for channel, okay? So this is just gonna call this function here. This one's gonna do all the work. So it's gonna go if not sound effects dot get sound effects pointer. So if we don't have a sound effect actually alive, like a valid pointer, we don't want to try to play this sound. Scion error. So it doesn't know what Scion error is. Let's include our logger. And we want to say failed to play sound FX on channel like that one. And we'll also say sound FX pointer is null. And we'll say sound FX get name and channel. And we'll just return from here. And now we want to play the chunk. So we want to say if mix play channel. It takes in the channel first, then the mix chunk. So sound FX get sound effects pointer. Then it takes in the number of loops. Okay. So that's equal to -1. I believe that is. Let's check it out again. So yeah, returns -1 if the sound cannot be played. Okay. If that's equal to -1, we want to get the error. std string error mix get error. Then Scion error failed to play. So we should probably just copy this whole thing. Failed to play sound effects on channel, and then we'll actually have an error here. So we'll say error and then send in our error. Okay, and then just return. We don't have to return because it's at the bottom. Okay, cool. So setting volume will basically be the same thing that we did in the music. So let's go get that. So we'll just go to our music player right here. Let's grab all this. SoundFX Player, going to our set volume. And it's going to be a little bit different. Now this one is just mix volume. Now this one takes in your channel and the volume chain. So it's basically the same thing. And for stop, we want to stop the channel. So mix, halt, channel. And that takes in the channel. And we forgot to add that in as an argument. So we'll say int channel. That's my fault. Let's go back. Put that in there. Cool. All right. So you can check to see if it halts the channel. Right here it says return 0 on success or -1 if on error. And if you enter -1, it will stop all channels. So we can check here, go if is equal to -1. Then we'll want to say Scion error. Actually, let's get the error. STD string error. Sorry. Mix get error. Failed to halt the music. Oh, sorry, halt the sound effects. And then we can say channel. And then here, just go a little ternary operator. So we'll go channel is equal to -1. If it is, then we'll write all channels. Else, we will write SE2 string channel. And then return. Actually, we don't have to return. Just a nice error. Cool. So this one is just, so now we want to set the is playing. So it's just mix is playing. That takes in our channel. Not is playing, sorry. Mix playing, and it takes the channel. There we go. So it returns non-zero if a channel is playing, 0 otherwise. If channel is -1, it returns a total number of channels that are playing. So we could change this a little bit, but this is good for now. Okay. All right. So that's basically our sound player. Let's just build it really quick, see if it builds. All right. Still builds. Good. So now we need a way to add our sound effects to our asset manager. So let's go do that now. We need to add in our sound effects. Create a new map, and this will be map sound effects. SoundFX. Awesome. Then we need to add a couple more functions here. Let's copy both of our get music and add music. Copy these with their comments, and we'll change them accordingly. SoundFX name, file path. Cool. I believe I got everything. Looks good. All right, let's make these functions. Cool. Let's go to add sound effects first. So just like the add music, we want to check to see if the sound effects exist first. So we go if m map sound effects dot find sound effects name is not equal to m map sound effects dot end. Then we want to have a little error here because that means it already exists. So just Scion error already. How do we say this? Let's make it consistent. Yeah, so we'll do that here. Just like this. Failed to add sound FX already exists. And then just return false. All right, so now if it doesn't exist in the map, we can try to add it. And to do that, we need to make a mix chunk. So mix chunk pointer, and we'll just call this one chunk, is equal to mix load wave. And we're taking in the file path as a C string. Okay. And that's load wave, all capitals. Now we want to check to see if the chunk exists. So if it's null pointer. So check the chunk. And if it does not exist, let's get the error. That's just mix get error. Okay. And then we'll set our error. Scion error failed to load at path error. So that's our SoundFX name. That's our file path. And then the error. Okay, and then return false. All right, so now we got our mixed chunk. It's not in the map. Now we want to create our params. Scion sounds, sound params, and we want to say dot name is equal to SoundFX name. Dot file name is equal to file path. File path. And duration is equal to chunk ln divided by 179.4. Cool. So now that we have our chunk and we have our parameters, we can actually make our SoundFX pointer. So we can go auto p SoundFX is equal to std make shared Scion sounds SoundFX, and that takes in the params, and it takes in a SoundFX pointer chunk. All right, and once we have that, we can put it into our map. SoundFX name, and move in our pointer. P SoundFX. Cool. All right, and if we made it to here, return true. Beautiful. Getter is pretty straightforward. We just want to say auto sound iter is equal to map SoundFX dot find. Now we're sending in our SoundFX name. If it doesn't have it, so if sound iter is equal to map SoundFX dot end, we just want to return null pointer. Let's have a little error first. Scion error failed to get SoundFX does not exist. Send in the name and then return null pointer. You got to be careful when you're returning pointers at any time. Always make sure you're checking to see that it's null pointer so you don't dereference the null pointer. Okay, and if it is, so go sound iter second. Cool. All right, so now let's add in our add sound effects function. So add sound effects. Oh, let's put a comma here. This is in our bind, sorry, in our create Lua bind, our AssetManager bind. We want to be able to add this in our Lua functions, or in our Lua scripts, sorry. So capture a lambda, const, std string, reference, SoundFX name, and the file path. Sorry. Cool. And then here we just say return asset manager, add sound effects name, and file path. All right. That's it there. Beautiful. So now we have to go into our sound bindings and add this and bind our SoundFX player. We need to be able to do that. So let's go there now. So sound bindings. So here, once we get here, we basically want to do the same thing. So let's just copy this. We already have the asset manager, so we won't have to do it again. But down here, we will do our binding. So create the SoundFX Player bindings. Okay. And we'll just paste that in that we grabbed earlier, and we'll just change this to SoundFX Player. And then we want to go SoundFX Player. And we need to add that in up here at the top. SoundFX Player. I believe that's it, how we spelt it. Include, oh, it's not in music player, my bad. That's in sound player, sound effects player. Cool. So now we need to change this here. Fail to bind the sound FX player to Lua, not in the registry. So you got to remember, we need to add this in the registry in our initialization function. Well, we're not there yet, but we'll get there soon. So we basically want to do the same thing here at our new Lua user type for the sound effects, and we'll just say Lua.new user type, and the sound FX player. And I'm just actually going to call it sound. This will have no constructor. And it's going to have a play function. And then this one will also have a soul overload. Capture, and it'll take in a const std string reference and its sound name. So the first thing we're going to want to do is get the sound effects from the asset manager. So if auto p sound effects is equal to asset manager get sound effects, takes in the sound name. We want to check to see if it is null pointer. So if not p sound fx, we'll have another error here. Scion error failed to get from the asset manager. That'll just be the sound name. And we'll just return. We don't want to keep going with the function if we don't actually have a sound effects pointer. And then we'll go sound FX player play. And then this just takes in our sound effects. Dereference sound FX, or P sound effects. Cool. That's it for that one. And this, we can copy this whole function here. And then just add in the other one. So it takes in the sound name. It takes in the loops. And it takes in the channel. So here, all we have to change here is this. This will take in our loops and our channel. Awesome. Put that there. So that's our play function. We can have our stop function now. Stop. That takes in the channel that we want to stop. Sound player. Stop. Channel. And we'll have set volume, which will also take in a channel. capture, channel. Sorry, that's SoundFX Player. I'm trying to go too fast, guys. Sorry about that. So this one takes in a channel. Then this also takes in the volume. Okay, probably just do this in one line. SoundFX Player. Set volume. Channel and volume. Cool. And one more for the is playing. So is playing. Channel. Return. SoundFX Player is playing. And that takes in the channel. All right, so I think that's good for now. If we need to add anything else in, we'll add that in at that point. But at this point, it's good enough for now. So let's just build it and make sure it works. This should automatically already be done in our scripting because we're already calling our sound binder in our scripting. And it didn't work, so I must have missed something. Oh, yes. So right here, pretty simple mistake. You guys probably already saw that. Okay, and let's build again just to make sure. Perfect. And that's what we want, right? Because we didn't add it into our registry yet, so we're actually throwing an error here. Okay, so what we need to do is go add that into our registry, and we'll do that in application. So let's go up to the top, and with our music player, let's change this to our SoundFX player. Sound player. SoundFX player. And wherever we did our music player, we'll add it in right there. So right here with our music player, we're going to do the same thing. So let's just copy all of this and change this to our sound player, sound player, sound player. Sound player, SoundFX player. Yeah, that's better. And then this is SoundFX player. Get rid of that. Cool. Did we add that all? And it looks good. All right, let's run it. All right, awesome. So it's running. We made our SoundFX player. Now let's go and add in some sound effects to our assets. So what we're going to need to do is open up our Asteroids asset defs. All right, so I just opened up the Asteroids game as its own little thing here. So in the asset defs, we're going to want to create a new table for sound effects. Sound FX, that's equal to a new table. Okay. And now we need to go get some sound effects for our game. And I already got some from before. So let's put them in here and go to our sounds. And I'm just going to paste it in here. It's these sound effects. And I got all of these off of Open Game Art. So we just got a few. Big asteroid explosion, small explosion, and then explosion for the ship. And then the laser for the ship. So I got these four. So let's put them in. So we can just copy this here. Paste. And the first one, I'm going to say big ast explosion. And that's in our sounds. And then sound effects. Sound FX. And it's called big ast explosion.wave. Okay. And we can just copy this line. And then we're going to have another explosion. And this one's just called small explosion. Should call it small ass, but whatever. Small explosion. Change this to small asteroid explosion. Have another one. And this one's just going to be called explosion. And we'll call this one ship explosion. Ship explosion. Cool. And one more. And this one is laser. but this one's an MP3 file, MP3, and then we'll call this laser. Feel free to grab whatever sounds you need and name them whatever you like. So now we need to add those in here. So we want to go for A, V in pairs, not pairs, in pairs, asset defs dot sound effects do, and we can just add our end in. And it's basically the same thing. We want to say if not AssetManager dot add sound effects at v dot name v dot path. Then we just want to print. We can do this here. Copy this. Failed to load SoundFX. Loaded SoundFX. Cool. And if we go back into our engine and run it, it should work. Awesome. So see, we loaded our sound effects, our 4 sound effects. Now we just need to add them into the right spot. Okay. So the first one we can add in, if we just go to our ship.lua, right down here, right after we add the projectile, we're going to just say sound dot play, and we're going to send in the laser. So before we add any more, let's see if that works. Awesome. There's our laser sound. Cool. So we know the sound effects are working. So let's add in our other sounds. And since we're already in the ship, we can put the explosion in. And we can just do this right after the death timer started. So we can just go sound.play ship explosion. That should work. And you see we're not putting in a channel or anything. So it's just going to call the default where it goes -1 and finds any open channel. And that's what I care about right now. A good idea sometimes is to separate your channels based and have them for specific sounds, but we're not going to worry about any of that for now. We can add that stuff in later. Okay, so the other one, we can actually just put that in our utilities in our remove asteroid function. So if we go to remove asteroid, and right here, right after we add the score, we can just say sound.play big asteroid hit. Oh wait, no, big asteroid explosion. And down here, we could say small asteroid explosion. Okay, let's go back and see if that works. Okay, so that didn't work. So it said we couldn't get small asteroid explosion because we didn't name it asteroid explosion. Let's go. We named it Ast, or sounds like Ast, but I'm saying Ast. Ast explosion. Ast explosion. So it did its job. Checked, ran it for us. Let's run it again. They ever start coming. Oh, there they are. There it goes. You heard the sound? Where's the big guys? Perfect. Alright, we got our sounds going, guys. Alright, and that's it for the SoundFX Player. And we got it going. We got finished off the rest of the music player as well. Now, there's a lot of functionality that we're not adding in. Like, we can actually set the position of our music. We can add that in and do those things. We'll handle those tasks later. They're not that important. We can also change the position of our sounds if we want to make it have a more of a 3D aspect to it. You can do that with SDL Mixer. We'll look at that later on if we need to. However, that's the end for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to slow slowly start getting into looking into physics and adding in Box 2D to our game engine, okay? So if you've never worked with Box 2D, I recommend you start going through the documentation. I'll put the links to the documentation in the description, okay? If you have any questions, concerns, please leave them in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you, okay? Take it easy.